Hey everybody, Tom here from LaunchBoom, and so excited to have Kevin Liang on the phone today. If you guys can hear us, just go ahead and let us know. Let us know where you're from. Just so excited for this webinar today. Well, thank you, Kevin, for hopping on.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Tom.
It's been a long time coming. So for those of you who don't know who Kevin Liang is, he's actually the reason I'm where I'm at today. He actually we were friends in college, left college, and then he went and started ADI, Aqua Design Innovations, and came to me and was basically, "Hey Tom, can you help me with this crowdfunding campaign thing?" And have you heard of Kickstarter? And I had never heard of Kickstarter before. And Kevin is the man, the myth, the legend who introduced me to Kickstarter. And long story short, launched like 7 campaigns together or
Seven
something.
campaigns, yeah.
Like I don't even know how much raised, millions of dollars.
hmm
And it was just an incredible experience. And that's what kind of put us. That was before we were LaunchBoom. That's what like put us on the path to where we are today. What was that, like 5, 6
Yeah.
years
The
ago?
first campaign was November 2013.
Yep.
And yeah, and then you sat me down and walked me through the messaging pyramid with
hmm
the entire team you had there with you at Label Creative. So
hmm Well, yeah, and so stoked now that it's gotten to the point where now Kevin is for all of you who don't know who we are and what we do. So Tom DeJoyan, CMO of LaunchBoom, Kevin is one of our growth specialists. So he's now on the team, which is something that like I've always wanted. And so I'm so stoked that you're finally here. So stoked.
yeah. And for everyone that's live with us now, what I do now is sort of take all the experience that I've accumulated over the past 7 years and 7 campaigns that I've worked with Tom on and LaunchBoom team on, and including manufacturing and sort of some of the logistics experiences. And we're now helping creators. So I'm sort of the front-facing role here at LaunchBoom. And if you guys want to reach out to me to talk crowdfunding, fulfillment, logistics, manufacturing, or if you guys are just stuck anywhere, feel free to reach out. It's just Kevin@launchboom.com.
Yeah, Kevin is absolutely a wealth of knowledge, and he's really done it all. So really stoked to have you here. So without further ado, what we're going over today with you guys, and again, we are going to have a chance at the end for a Q&A session. So if you've got questions for me, questions for Kevin, does not have to be related to this topic, literally anything at all. What our favorite food is, whatever, go ahead and use the Ask a Question tool at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get those questions answered at the end of this webinar. So really excited for that. And so let's dig in. So today I'm going to be going over the crowdfunding advertising mistakes and how to avoid them. Advertising can be one of the most challenging, but also the most rewarding parts of the crowdfunding experience. And so this information and kind of like what I'm sharing with you today, my hope is we're looking at it from 2 different perspectives. One is from the perspective of an actual advertiser, so like you getting into ad accounts, programming things, but also from the perspective of a CEO who's going to work with an advertising agency. And at the end of this, we'll actually talk about what makes a good advertising agency. Of course, we'll share why we think you should work with LaunchBoom. But I want to really leave you today with some action items so that if you are working with an advertising agency, you know the questions to ask. If something's not working, something's like really not working well, you now are armed with enough information to be deadly, to be able to like ask questions and better understand. So if you aren't actually the person running ads, cool, this will still be helpful for you. And that's why this information is presented the way that it is. So let's dig in here today. So the first mistake is being too short-sighted. And this is something that I know I'm gonna let Kevin dig into here in just a second too. But what I mean by this is a lot of times we're so focused on the metrics in front of us that we're not looking at the big picture. For example, if we're looking at what return should we get on a campaign, if let's say I'm launching a product with Kevin and I are launching a product together, super cool. It's this awesome new phone, and we end the campaign and have a direct maybe 20x return on our ad spend. Should we be happy? Should we be sad? How should we feel about it? My personal perspective is I would be pissed. I would not be happy with a 20x return, because that tells me that, yes, I've got a great profit margin. That's awesome. I might be able to take home more dollars, but the valuation of my company is now lower, and the number of backers that we have is lower because I didn't spend hard enough. So when it comes to like kind of like the advertising economics, you want to kind of try to ride that line as much as possible, because that will impact the long-term growth of your campaign or of your company. Because you want it, for example, for me, let's say I did the math and I know that a 3x is healthy. I've got plenty of margin. I'm paying myself, paying my team, paying the manufacturers. There's room for shipping, all of that good stuff. And 3x is kind of like my goal. I want to be spending as much as possible in order to make that happen. So if I'm getting a 20x return, what that's telling me is that I didn't spend enough money and I was being too short-sighted, and I was just looking at making a quick buck rather than the valuation of my company, what backers can mean for my long-term, like the long-term value. Will it impact my equity crowdfunding campaign right after this campaign? If I'm just focused on making $1 now, I'm not looking down the road to see how everything kind of fits together. And same thing is true for ads that aren't doing well. Right? If you're just like, oh, I just need to be positive. I just need to like have a successful campaign, but I don't care about my return, or I'm not thinking about shipping. Then down the road, when you realize that you're super not profitable, you're gonna have a bad time. And so you don't want to be short-sighted. You want to think about the long term, and you want to think about how your ads will impact your business in the long term. Kevin, especially as like an experienced business veteran, anything you want to share here about being too short-sighted?
Yeah. And I'm sure many of you guys here have thought about this too, but when you are able to drive more volume at a slightly, or I guess in the case that Tom talked about, a significantly lower return on ad spend, right? A 3x return on ad spend versus a 20x return on ad spend, you're likely going to be driving a lot more volume, right? And so with the volume, you're able to leverage that to negotiate with different suppliers for better pricing per unit. And ultimately, that's how you can keep your margins there while growing the size of your business. And then another point that Tom really touched on that I'd love to elaborate on is the lifetime value of your customers, right? And so you want to look at and think about, again, Tom says, the long term, right? Like, what other products are you going to launch in the future? What other accessories are these customers, backers, going to buy from you? And so even if you're getting that just 3x return on ad spend, which is typically, I think, what most of LaunchBoom's clients aim for, and what I personally aim for during my campaigns, if you have a solid product and solid business, you know that they will purchase other products from you in the future. Finally, the last piece of it is the 3x return on advertising spend is just directly tracked, right? That doesn't account for the ranking that you get on these platforms like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, which brings you a ton more organic traffic, higher conversion, because now your campaign is larger. So those are things that you want to take into account when you're calculating your sort of minimum return on advertising spend to continue adding to your advertising budget and investing in your business.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Kevin. Well said. So number 2, not doing a complete analysis and research. So really what this means, there's a couple of different places to look at, right? Is you're looking at your competitive analysis. And so a lot of times people don't realize that you can actually snipe your competitors' ads. So that's kind of like a fun kind of like thing here is you can actually go to any Facebook page. It's now their new transparency rules. Go to any Facebook page, go to, believe it's in the bottom right-hand corner, not all the way down, but just like of their profile, kind of like the part that's hanging down on the side. You'll see like there's a section that says page transparency. If you click on that and then you can select ad library, you can literally see all the ads that they're currently running. So that can give you a really great insight into what your competitors are doing and give you some really great ideas for, what to say and what to do. That's like kind of like a more of like a hack versus like true sustainable, ideation and all of that stuff. And that's where the real research comes into play. Really doing the research to understand who your target demographic is, what do they love, where do they go, what other products do they own, what campaigns have they backed. Just really digging in there and understanding your target demographic will help you better advertise to them. You'll make better copy, you'll pick better images, and you'll choose better audiences. And so a lot of times I'll see younger advertisers just really want to get ads up. And so instead, taking the time, do the research, talking to your customers, which is a shocking experience for a lot of CEOs, to actually talk to your customers, do it. Don't avoid it like the plague. They'll really help you understand how to better communicate with them. Because if you're able to then feed them that information back to them, the better you're going to do. And if you want to dig into this more, a really great resource I recommend is the Ask Method. It's a really good book that can dig into like how to really do that competitive research and analysis by using your customers. So anything you want to add to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to add, the Ask Method was something that we implemented at my business. And the book is a great book. I would say you could probably skip the first third to half of the book. And then this 2/3 and the later 2/3 and the second half is really where he digs into what the method actually is, with templates on what types of surveys to send out, etc. And I think, I want to add to the point of, or emphasize the point of speaking with your customers. You'd be surprised at how much of the language that they use can be applied to the messaging and the advertising, and how much more effective and better returns on advertising spend that you can get by using the language that your customers use to describe their needs and their pain points. So I think that's an extremely valuable thing that we can all do more of.
Absolutely. And a great place to do this too is to create a Facebook group and invite all your potential customers, your VIPs, all of that, and get real feedback, see what they like, share your ad ideas with them. I'm sure they'll have a lot to say. Number 3, audiences that are too broad. So something that you can kind of get sucked down, especially if you're a new advertiser, is going after the general broad audiences in Facebook. So if you're in Facebook's backend, you understand about audiences, you'll notice that you can target brands, but you can also target interests. So for example, if I have a fitness product and I want to, build a Facebook audience, what are the different audiences I could build? I could build a custom audience, like an email list from somebody else. So somebody else gave me an email list, and I can run that. Great. That's super targeted, super precise. Great. That's a fantastic audience to run. You could do a lookalike audience. You could take that list, put it into Facebook, find the 1% of the United States that looks most like those people, and target those individuals. That's a lookalike audience. That's awesome. Not too broad. And then next is now you can start thinking about what interests do they have. So for example, if I'm going after a fitness brand, the trap is there's some generalized interests in Facebook, such as fitness or weightlifting, which are traps. Stay away from them. They've got like 24 million people who like them, right? The guy on the couch eating KFC is probably saying, oh yeah, I like fitness, right? Like you don't know like if it's more aspirational or if they're actually a good person to go after. So if your audience is too large, basically like greater than 5 million to 10 million people, usually our audiences stick between 2 to 3 million is like kind of like our sweet spot or under. Then you could be just targeting too many people. And then Facebook's algorithm has to work extra hard to find kind of like your niche within that. So I would recommend not using that. And instead, if I'm looking at fitness, go after, okay, well, what does my target consumer like doing? Okay, they love going to CrossFit, right? Somebody who likes CrossFit likes CrossFit, and they will let you know. And so, or Orange Theory or whatever they're into, those people really like we know they like fitness, right? There's no question about it. And so being able to target that person is going to take a lot of weight off of Facebook's algorithm and allow that algorithm to really shine by feeding it audiences that are going to do well. So you want to stay away from audiences that are too broad. Anything you want to add here, Kevin, or ready to move to the next one?
I think this just goes back to the idea of talking with your customers too, right? What audience segment do they fit into, and how do you find more of them? That's the only point I had to add.
Awesome. So next kind of like mistake is imagery that's too pretty. And so you can see here on the screen, I've got two examples. So this was for spring, awesome product. Those are my legs in the right picture, taken on this phone. And the other is one that was a really expensive high-end photography. And so you look at one, the CTR was 0.93%. And the CPC, the cost per click, was $2.64. That's really bad and really high. Versus the other one, we're looking at a 5.65% CTR. So I'd say good is like 2%. So 2% or higher, maybe 2 to 4% is like really good. So this was excellent. And then our cost per click of 55 cents, which is great. So, and you can see that, of course, just with this like simple example, one performed better than the other. But why is that? Is we need to understand the platforms that we're advertising on, right? Is Facebook and Instagram, people aren't going on there looking for ads. Like they're not like, oh man, I can't wait to see another ad today, right? They're on there because they want to see like that cute new cat video that their aunt posted, or baby pictures, or catching up with their friends, or learning about the cool new party that's coming up, or how looking at pictures of the last weekend's party. And so it's again, you want to kind of blend into the platform so you don't have ad blindness. So if somebody can look at something and go, oh yeah, that's an ad, even though you're like, oh, but it's standing out, right? Usually that kind of content that looks like an ad, you then get ad blindness and they'll just keep going. But if you've got content that kind of looks organic, you're like, oh, cool, what's that? That gives you enough, it stands out enough to get you to like notice it, but also isn't an ad or doesn't look like an ad, is going to perform a lot better. And so that's more like lifestyle, use, unboxings, organic content. I can't tell you how many times we've worked with clients that are like, why are these ads so ugly? And I was like, just wait. And then seeing how they actually performed, incredible. I remember for the EcoCube Air, the top performing ad image was literally me holding the EcoCube Air and like turning my head quickly. So I'm all blurred. It's out of focus. The product, you can kind of see it. I think it's still the photo for Tom's
find on Facebook.
Yeah, that's the top performing ad for the EcoCube Air.
Yeah. And the professional photographer or the professional photograph for that product actually had, a $3 to $5 cost per lead, whereas the one where you were just holding the EcoCube and turning your body, that one had a 60 or 70 cents cost per lead, which was insane.
Yeah, which we shot in our office, at the time. So super easy, probably cost nothing.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the kind of like the key factor is we're talking about advertising. There's a difference. So don't take this too far, because you need somebody to click on that picture and then see beautiful photos, right? Because there's a difference. Because if you see like a landing page or a sales page that is covered with like really authentic imagery, you're going to go like, wow, this product's really cheap. Like, I don't want it. So that's kind of like the balance, is like use the ugly stuff in your ads and then make sure that your campaign page and your ecom page or your landing page is beautiful. Like that's the thing, is you balance those two things together. You use authenticity and excitement to draw somebody in, and then you use higher end imagery to then convert them. That's what's funny, is the image on the left was actually one of the top performing headline photos on the page. So that image did work really well on the landing page, but did not work well on the ads. So that's something to note. Number 5, neglecting remarketing. I can't tell you how many times I go into ad accounts, see advertisers, especially new ones, not doing remarketing. Remarketing is literally the easiest way to make money, and you're leaving so much money on the table if you're not doing it. Now, it's hard on certain platforms. For example, Kickstarter doesn't give you the opportunity to put a pixel on that page. And so you've got to either work with an agency like LaunchBoom or Gelup or so on and so forth. And they can actually deploy remarketing efforts there using some of their more ninja strategies. But if you're on Indiegogo, or you're thinking about e-commerce, remarketing traditionally will deliver the highest return. And a lot of times that remarketing dollars can balance out your top of funnel. I literally have an ad account running right now where we're getting a 1x on our top of funnel, but we're getting a 10x on our remarketing, and our combined return is like 4x. So again, like the way that those two kind of like things can work together can allow you to scale harder, can allow you to spend more in order to get that volume that we were kind of talking about earlier. So anything you want to talk about that when it comes to remarketing? I know you've used remarketing a lot in ADI.
No, I think you did a good job of covering it. It's a pretty simple concept. I guess, there's people always talk about, prospects need to see your product and your brand 7 times before they make a purchase, right? So remarketing, the reason why it's so effective is it just allows you to do that much more effectively.
Yep, well said. And for those of you who, I realize, like maybe you don't know what remarketing is. So what remarketing is it's the you're basically taking your web traffic, people who interacted with you or your product, and you're serving ads back to those individuals. So that's what it is. Number 6, not running any third-party ads. So this is one of the cool kind of like benefits of LaunchBoom, is actually working with Tom's Finds. So this cool shirt that I'm wearing right now. So we run most of our ads through Tom's Finds. Why is that? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, we can talk about a product from a third-party perspective, right? Saying like, man, this is the coolest wireless mouse ever. I love this thing, right? If that's coming from like Razer's actual brand page, you're like, what? Because you're talking about, like, of course you think that you're the brand, right? But if you're instead coming from a third-party perspective, you're able to get away with saying a lot more, and you can identify with the customer more, and you can use like a wider range of creative. You can get away with things that are outside kind of like your brand equity and outside of like your brand voice, and have a lot of fun there. And you can pair it with advertising from your brand in order to kind of balance things out. Like a fun strategy is do remarketing as the brand, and then do all of your top of funnel as like third party, Tom's Finds, that kind of stuff. That's a cool, fun little strategy there. But again, the other thing that happens too when you're doing that is Facebook does take a page's kind of like reach or page reach into account. And so if you've never run an ad before and your page reach is like 0, right? Nobody's seeing your page, nobody's interacting with it, whether it's on the page itself or on ads, you're not going to perform as well in the like battle royale that is Facebook advertising compared to somebody who, like us at Tom's Finds, we have, I think our weekly page reach is like 2 to 3 million people. So rising tide lifts all ships. And by running ad spend for all of our clients through this one platform, all of our clients are seeing a massive benefit, regardless of if they have a Facebook page that they've been running for a while versus one that they've never run before. So third-party ads are really, really, really cool. And it also creates kind of like the false impression of PR. And it allows you to like almost get the benefit of PR without actually having PR and actually being able to track stuff. So it's super cool. So number 7, neglecting the funnel. So this is really, really, really important. I was thinking about changing this slide to saying like neglecting the user experience, because that's at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? What is the path that you're taking, or like the kind of the journey that you're taking a person on? They're seeing an ad, then what's happening, then what's happening, then what's happening, right? Like what is that experience? And so if you can kind of like lead them, right, the things that you're talking about in your ad are then being talked about on your page, right? You're like making a thesis statement with your ad and then proving that with your landing page, or your imagery like lines up from one to the next. That's really, really powerful and important. So that's like the flow. But then second is, a lot of times people are like, I've tried everything. I don't understand why I'm not getting a good CPL or CPA or CPR or any of that stuff, right? Like, people just aren't converting, right? Is you cannot neglect conversion, right? Because a lot of times, like I can't tell you how many times I've been working on a project and it's like, I thought I had really good ads. I don't get it. Why am I not getting good cost per reservation? You go in there, you look at the conversion rate and it's like 10%. Okay, now we understand what the problem is. Right? It's not in the ads. The ads are doing fine. They're getting a great click-through rate. They're getting a great cost per click, but the landing page is ugly, doesn't do its job, hard to kind of consume information. The headline sucks. The main photo sucks, right? It doesn't show enough value so that when somebody comes and sees the cost to reserve, it just doesn't line up. And so making sure that you're checking your entire funnel. And that's why as an advertiser, you need to take ownership. You can't just be like, oh, well, landing page sucks, my bad. Like you need to take ownership over that landing page and over that entire through line and experience. And if you're working with an outside agency, that it depends on who you're working with. Working with LaunchBoom, we take responsibility for the whole funnel. But a lot of times, you'll work with agencies that don't have a whole lot of funnel experience, and they'll just like not do well and be wondering why, when the problem might be the campaign page or the landing page. And so having somebody that can actually give you feedback on that can be really helpful.
And Tom, what is 1 or 2 tips that you might have for everyone watching here to have the best converting funnel, right? Because at LaunchBoom, we've tested dozens and dozens of them. What is your best performing one?
So piece of advice, 1, don't try to reinvent the wheel. So like go snipe our ads, go look at our landing pages and look at don't just take the copy because that won't apply to you. Think about the flow and the structure, like what is actually being said here, and break that down and mimic that structure, because storytelling hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 5,000 years. It's pretty much the same. And so, because the human hasn't actually evolved that much in that time. And so the way that we tell stories and the way that we consume information has been one of the slowest things to evolve. And so looking at how that information is laid out that'd be number 1. Number 2, like kind of like a hack that I'd recommend is, or I'll give you 3 things. So second, a hack is whatever your top performing headline is on your ad, make that the headline on your landing page. That gives you a little bit more through line.
That's awesome.
And then third is double check your lead offer. So maybe people don't understand why they're signing up or what they're getting from signing up. And you can even put that lead offer in your ad. So again, through line experience, right? Is like, if you sign up, you're going to get you're going to get an exclusive discount and like unique VIP customization, whatever, right? So your lead offer, again, that flow from the ad to the landing page, and then looking at what other people have done and what's worked well, especially within your industry, and that applies to campaign pages too.
Awesome. And just one more that I've seen through successful funnels and pages is just lots, big images, right, and beautiful images, and then big simple text, right? You don't want you want someone to be able to scroll through and read as few words as possible and understand why they're there, what they're asking for, and what you get from it, right? Those 3 points in 30 to 60 seconds. The shorter, the better.
100%. A lot of people don't realize that, like, it's funny because let's say you've got a section. In that section, you've got like a headline, and then in that you've also got like a body paragraph. Think of the body paragraph more as like an image in gibberish. So like it needs to be there to show that this has like depth, but rarely do people actually read it.
That's right.
So like you need to have it there, because if you don't have it there, it feels empty, right? So it's almost like a picture. Like it could be in like, I'm sure I could probably hide like jelly donut recipes in our landing pages and nobody would ever know. But those headlines, you're so right, Kevin, those headlines are super important. And that's definitely one of the first things to test is like, do your headlines tell your story, and making sure that they really land each of the main points.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So number 8, shutting off ads too soon, especially for newer advertisers. It can be really scary. You start day one, I've spent $5. I haven't gotten a lead yet. Oh no, I need to turn everything off. My cost per lead is like infinity bad, right? Like, cause I have no, like, can't divide anything by 0. And so, yeah, it's bad, right? And so people will shut off ads too soon, or they'll go into an ad account and they'll see that ads aren't performing well, and they don't really understand about testing and the purpose of gathering data and information. They'll just turn ads off that aren't performing well. Well, I can't tell you how many times, like, launched an ad and look at it on the 24-hour mark, and things are bad, things are terrible, as long as I'm not overspending, of course. And then 48 to 72 hours later, all of those ads are crushing it. So Facebook does take some time to do some learning. And so like being patient, not touching ads for 48 hours is really important when you launch new ads. And so turning those ads off way too soon, not getting a full, like, accurate amount of data can really hurt your ad performance, because it doesn't give Facebook a chance to learn, and it doesn't give you a chance to learn. So number 9, last but not least, is picking the wrong advertising agency. So that can absolutely, number one thing that can hurt your ad performance is who's running your ads, right? And that's also not picking an advertising agency. Even you running your own ads, right? You're picking you as your own advertising agency, or you're picking, your intern as your advertising agency. And so picking the wrong person to run your ads can absolutely hurt your everything. It's bad, because you're like, when we're looking at what contributes to the success of a campaign, advertising is like the main lever, right? You've got like your pre-launch list, PR, which sometimes you think you pulled down but actually didn't, and it's kind of confusing as to like where it actually is. Could be invisible, but it can also drive a ton of sales. But then the real lever is advertising. It's something you can track, you get real data on, and is that something that you want to leave to like the most inexperienced person in the room, or an agency that's gonna do you wrong? So let's actually answer that question. What makes a good advertising agency? What do you like? So Kevin, too, because you've been around the block quite a bit. You've talked to a bunch of advertising agencies. There's some that shall not be named that are like really predatory and can, be something to avoid like the plague, and others that are great. There's a couple that are really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, Kevin, what would you say makes a good advertising agency?
Yeah, I've spoken with at least a dozen and worked with at least half a dozen advertising agencies now. And I think a really good advertising agency will always have the entrepreneur or the creator's best interest in mind. And what I mean by that is they're going to be looking at your lifetime value of a customer and a client versus sort of the short term, right? They'll take the long term view with you, and they will usually take a percentage of, say, total return on ad spend, whether it be revenue or total gross profits, rather than ad spend, because then sort of your incentives aren't aligned if it's just a total percentage of your ad spend, right? They want to spend as much as possible so that they get the largest percentage. Whereas when you're taking a percentage of, or they're partnering with you and they're helping you succeed and they're driving lots of gross profit or gross revenue, taking a percentage of that return is much more aligned with you and your success. And then I think they're always looking at, so having the entrepreneur's best interest in mind, right? They're always looking at how to mitigate risk for you. And something that, I recommend everyone to do, and it was sort of popularized by Mark here, the CEO at LaunchBoom, and one of the co-founders, is the dollar reservation funnel, right? And this service that we have called TestBoom, which is, spending the smallest amount of budget possible and giving you the maximum amount of data. So what that process is like is LaunchBoom asks for a $2,000 advertising fee or a $2,000 advertising budget to test a variety of ads and landing pages and messaging to get the best performing ones. And they not only collect the leads from the ads, but also ask for a fully refundable $1 reservation. And what that does is it allows Facebook to optimize for purchases rather than just leads, and it gets you significantly higher quality leads. And looking at those metrics, you'll be able to see whether your product is going to be, super successful or just okay successful before you make a larger investment. And to my knowledge, I think, LaunchBoom is the only agency that offers that right now. But I encourage everyone to do a lot more testing and collect a lot more data, and encourage the agencies that you work with to present you with data in terms of whether your product or your campaign is going to perform prior to making a larger investment. It should always be an iterative process. So I think definitely someone that has your best interest in mind and constantly asking those questions. How do we cap the downside, right? And because if you can make a small-ish investment and find out, collect a bunch of data on whether your campaign is going to be successful or not, then everything else is sort of upside, right? So making sure you cap your downsides with the agencies and partners that you work with is super important.
Yeah, those are all fantastic, fantastic things to look for. And I'll add a few more as well, just to kind of like caution everyone. Is like, one thing to caution about is like pixel data. So like, do you actually own the pixel, right? Like, so again, going back to like short-term versus long-term thinking, even Amazon.com is a great play, but it's still kind of short-term thinking because you don't get to own your data, and your Facebook pixel is really important. And so working with an agency that ideally uses your Facebook pixel is the way to go, or can make a Facebook pixel with you and share it with you, and actually has data transparency, does make a big difference. Now, I know like there's agencies out there like, that are amazing. They get incredible results. I refer to them all the time. Gelup is one of them. They've got great dashboards. They're awesome. And I love those guys. If you're doing Kickstarter, you have to work with them for advertising, like period. Like you got to do it because they're the best. But you're trading, the kind of like the only downside of that is you're trading, you're not, your ability to look into an advertising account or to see all the data and see all of the pieces for that performance. And so they are, in my opinion, the best Kickstarter advertisers, but they don't give you the same kind of data transparency that LaunchBoom would give you. I would still say work with them, absolutely. They're the best, but know that there is kind of like a downside there. Which is where on our end at LaunchBoom, something that we really pride ourselves on is transparency. Is you're looking at what is the long-term objective here. You want to be able to gather this data, not just to have a successful crowdfunding campaign, but be able to take that information into the next phase of your experience. And so an agency that has experience, not just in one small piece, again, that's great, that's awesome, they'll probably perform well, but to have an agency that can actually carry you from like one phase of your business to the next does make a significant difference. And that is something that I would look for. And then, of course, the number one thing what makes a good advertising agency is you like working with them. Like, look for somebody that you like working with, right? Because you're going to be talking to them a lot. You're going to be having a lot of experiences with them. And if you don't like working with them, it's going to be a painful experience for everyone. So like, make sure that you're choosing like a partner or an unsung, that like almost like an unsung equity holder in your business that you like working with. And so that's super, super, super important. Anything else that I may have missed, Kevin?
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on that, right? I think many of us are, going through this actually, quite a tough journey, taking this, tough road, so that we get to choose the people that we get to work with, rather than, doing something else or working a, standard 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And which, frankly, a lot of the time could be a lot easier than launching your own products. And so I think it's super important that you take that, and you don't take that liberty for granted, and you definitely choose the people that you really, really do enjoy working with. And it's been a real pleasure of mine personally to work with Tom on 7 different campaigns. And our friendship just got stronger and stronger with each campaign, which is really cool when you can merge like personal relationships with like work relationships. And now I'm with LaunchBoom, so it's it's wild. It's wild to think about, but it's really cool as well.
Yeah, it's important because, and the reason why I think it's like, well, why does Kevin and Tom get along so well together? Like, why does Kevin mesh so well? It's because it comes down to core values, right? Is like, I know what Kevin's core, like I've always known what Kevin's core values were. We were friends in college, and he knows what my core values are, and our core values like really mesh. And I think that makes a really big difference. So, and of course, the only other thing too is what looking for a good advertising agency is breadth and depth of product experience. So the ability to like, they've worked on a lot of different products. That's going to really help them bring a lot to the table just from like an advertising experience. Every product is different, and every product, you can't just use the same template over and over again. Templates are a great place to start, but being able to work with an agency that's worked on a ton of different products, and one that also has gotten really great performance on a lot of different products is important. And then also one that has a really great email list or a great database. That's one of the huge benefits of like working with LaunchBoom is we've got over 3 million backers that we've logged. We know exactly what products they've worked on, how many projects, what did they back, how much did they back. We've got really great data analytics that we can then take, and every campaign we do just gets us smarter and smarter and smarter. We're able to learn what audiences, whether they're owned or cold or lookalike or what works best for what types of products. We're able to see long term and see like we're tracking from pre-campaign, how well did an audience do, into actual end campaign performance and backer lists. So we've got a ton of data to play with. And so working with an agency that has that kind of data, that's why Gelup is the best at Kickstarter. They've got probably one of the biggest lists in the agency business is important. But then of course, also the ability to actually mobilize that well. I know of some agencies and individuals that do a lot of advertising that have massive lists, but they don't know how to use them well. And so those are kind of like those two things, right? Working with like a LaunchBoom that's been doing advertising, I've been doing advertising for 10 plus years. It's changing every single day, but like the ability to kind of grow with that makes a big difference versus somebody who it's a new company. They just started advertising in the last 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, and that really ties into the point of transparency that you brought up earlier too, Tom, right? Like if LaunchBoom allows you to advertise to this database of 3 million, person audience and database of backers that have backed other campaigns similar to yours, and then they give you the pixel to access them post crowdfunding, that's an extremely valuable asset that you can tap into and to further grow your business. And having that, having a true partner that has your long-term, interests in mind is so important when you're looking for a partner.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said, Kevin. And so on that note too, one thing that I wanted to share with everybody, a lot of people don't know about this, but we do have a program called AdBoom. Highly recommend it at LaunchBoom. Basically what that is we come in for Indiegogo campaigns, whether they're about to launch, they're live, or are on in demand, and we take them to the moon. We've got so many incredible experiences. We're going to be launching a bunch of case studies in the next couple of weeks, so look out for those where we actually dig into like the raw data and share with you, how did we spend $18,000 and deliver $160,000 in sales in under 20 days for one of our AdBoom clients. And so again, AdBoom is a fantastic way to kind of get a taste of LaunchBoom if you're like not sure about TestBoom or you're already live and you're like, dang it, I wish I knew about you guys sooner. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Well, it's okay. As long as if you're running ads on Kickstarter, go work with Gelup. Awesome. We'll step in once you move over to in demand. So when you step off of Kickstarter and then go to Indiegogo in demand, we'll step in with AdBoom and be able to help you out. Again, we've got a testing program first and then move into our full end game there. But again, our goal with AdBoom is to build a relationship and learn via Indiegogo and Indiegogo in demand so that we can then take that to kind of like the final stage of our business, which is ScaleBoom, where we help scale 6-7 figure months for e-commerce. So we're crushing it right now, and we're helping our e-commerce clients not only scale up, hit 7-figure months, but also help them launch their next campaign. And we're using that. The data is it's a machine that's constantly working together in order to feed creative and feed all of the choices that are getting made, so that it just constantly gets better and better and better, and has exponential growth versus long trail of tears. So that's AdBoom, and I just really wanted to share that with you guys. Anything you want to touch on when it comes to AdBoom, Kevin?
Yeah, so AdBoom is a really effective way to leverage sort of LaunchBoom's database of 3 million plus people, right? So we would create Tom's Finds, yeah. And the test is, starts with, a $2,000 advertising budget and a $2,000 setup cost investment that goes toward LaunchBoom. But, for a campaign looking to surpass 6 figures, it's a significant amount of data and a significant upside that you have access to, because if it works, it could easily take you to a high 6-7 figure campaign on Indiegogo in demand.
Yeah, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about next week. So if you tune in for the webinar next week, follow LaunchBoom on Crowdcast. That's exactly what we're doing next week, is we're going to be talking about how to take a 6-figure campaign to 7 figures. And that's through AdBoom. So really, 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 really excited about that program. It's even though we've been doing advertising for our clients for a very long time, AdBoom's a relatively new initiative that a lot of people don't necessarily know about.
Yeah, and it's crushing it right now.
It is absolutely crushing it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so without further ado, the other part that I know everybody's really excited about is the Q&A session. So we've got a couple minutes here, and so we can get a couple questions answered. So if you have any questions, use that Ask a Question tool at the bottom, or if you can't figure out how to use it, you can put the questions in chat, and I'll get that in for you. But let's get that. You can also upvote other questions and things like that. So first question, Babak, also glad you're loving this one. We'll have a ton of really great content for you. I've been working on the webinar calendar for this quarter, and it's gonna be awesome. So it's just gonna get better and better. So the question is how is AdBoom different than TestBoom? So AdBoom is focused on live campaigns. So you're live on Indiegogo or live on Indiegogo in demand. We also do have a AdBoom for e-commerce. So if you do have like an e-commerce brand or something like that, but that's a really hard program to get into. We just don't have a whole lot of bandwidth over there, and our team is crushing it, and we want to stay focused on the projects that we do have, and not letting that team overextend itself. So when it comes to AdBoom, it's for actual Indiegogo campaigns that are currently live versus TestBoom, which is, you haven't launched on crowdfunding yet, and you're looking to do a crowdfunding launch. And so TestBoom is to like even test to see if you're a good fit for crowdfunding, or maybe you should consider going to Amazon or straight to retail, or maybe even rethink your product. A great example of this, we had a product that came to us, did not pass TestBoom, failed TestBoom, and then we gave them a ton of really great feedback. They realized they needed to get the costs down and change up some of their materials and change their messaging and story. They actually rebranded themselves, came back, passed TestBoom, and then had a strong 6-figure campaign. So again, that's how the difference between AdBoom and TestBoom. Next question. I'll get that question for you. So Brandon asked, do you have any, do you guys offer any type of financing option? That's a great question. We will in the near future, but if you get on the phone with our team, we can connect you with people who can get you that. Getting money is surprisingly easy, whether it's credit cards, investors, things like that, loans, all of that kind of stuff. And we do have a lot of, we do have loan people that we work with. We actually have a couple partners that will only serve our clients because they know that if they pass TestBoom, we actually give the TestBoom data to this financing company, and they're actually able to they'll be more likely to loan you money if they can see your ad data. So we'll get you connected there. If you just get on the phone with Kevin or other members of our team, if you hit that schedule call with LaunchBoom button at the bottom of the screen, get on the phone with us and we can get you connected with that. Eventually, we're going to have our own financing arm. It's just not there yet. Next question. How much is AdBoom, or is it a caveat to LaunchBoom? So AdBoom, as Kevin mentioned it's a $2,000 upfront payment, $2,000 of ad spend. That's the AdBoom test. That's like to get started. We'll spend that $2,000 and see if we're a good fit together. Again, expect to be making ideally, if you're going to be passing, you're probably going to be doing at least 3x. So that $2K of spend is going to turn into $6,000 at least. And then from there, it then becomes performance based. And so that's AdBoom. And so AdBoom's a great way to kind of feel us out if your campaign is live and to see if we're a good fit for you on e-com. And that's our ultimate goal. It's we're not here to just make a quick buck and bail, or to even just see you have a 6-7 figure Indiegogo in-demand campaign. We actually want to help you get to e-com. That's our end goal.
Yeah, have sustainable business, right? With profitable annual revenues that are consistent. And I think that's the only way that most of us here are going to be able to continue working on this full time, rather than constantly launch crowdfunding campaigns, which is a great strategy, but you also need consistent revenue on an e-commerce website, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Is AdBoom only for Indiegogo? Why just there? So for us, our advertising strategies center around the Facebook pixel. So the reason why we do advertise on Kickstarter, and we do well on Kickstarter, because we've got some really kind of ninja hacks and stuff like that that's proprietary in order to track those sales, just like Gelup does. But we see the best performance on Indiegogo. A combination of the platform itself, our ability to work with the Indiegogo team, the use of secret perks and add-ons, in addition to the way that we manipulate and use the Facebook pixel, is very unique, and that's how we see success on Indiegogo. We are actually we were the first agency, I believe, to be Kickstarter certified, Indiegogo certified, and Facebook certified. So we're like a Facebook partner, and so we're pretty well tied in there. Next question. After TestBoom, 2K spent on ad test, is it possible to predict if the campaign can reach 7 figures, say 2 million? I would say yes and no. Traditionally hitting 7, if you pass TestBoom, and if you pass ad boom or an ad boom test, traditionally it is very, very likely that you're going to hit seven figures. It's really just a matter of time. Are you going to hit that seven figures, say in the first 30 days of your campaign, or after 30 to 90 days on in demand, or maybe even longer than that? That's really the name of the game, is how quickly can we hit that number. Most of our successful crowdfunding campaigns, even if they only raise a couple 100,000 on Kickstarter, will go on to raise well over $1 million once they're on Indiegogo in demand. And so that's really kind of like the thing there. But when it comes to the guarantee of, let's say, hitting a seven-figure launch, I would say when looking at TestBoom, there's kind of two pieces to look at. So first is going to be the pre-launch data. So that would be like TestBoom. Do you pass TestBoom? So if you're doing that, then you're very likely to. Again, can I say within 100% certainty? No. Next is actually launching the campaign and running ads while you are live, right? So that's like the second phase, because we need to take into account the conversion rate on the campaign page and all that other information. At that point, once you go live and it's pretty clear that we're able to get a sustainable return on ad spend, and there is a lot of popularity there and all of that other fun stuff, and you've got the ad spend to get to, say, 1 to 2 million, then at that point it's a question of if, it's more of a question of when. Next question. What is the max budget and pre-launch campaign for advertising? Can you evaluate the scope of funding through this pre-launch advertisements? Yes. So max budget pre-launch campaign for advertising, I would recommend spending, it's a tough one, because although the reservation funnel and the cost per lead funnel and all that stuff does give you some real data, you don't truly know until you go live how well that list is going to convert. Because there are other factors involved, such as like, how good is your Facebook group, right? Are you communicating well? If you are really abrasive and not a likable person and are not communicating well with the community, even if they're a VIP, they might not purchase. So that is something to consider. But traditionally, I would recommend spending somewhere between 20 and 40K during your pre-campaign. More than that, you're starting to risk a lot. We've had campaigns, a great example that would be Vava. We had a $2 million campaign. We're hitting ourselves over the head saying, man, I wish we spent more during that pre-campaign, because we had a 20x return on our pre-campaign budget. And I think we spent like 15 to 20K during pre-campaign. We're like, we wish we spent more. While we did get like a 10x return once the campaign was live, we didn't see as good of results as we did from our pre-campaign advertising. So it's kind of like it's a both, and we like to stay safe. And also the other thing to consider too is if you're spending a lot of money, that takes time to deploy all that spend. And so if I have $100,000, let's say, pre-campaign advertising budget, the pre-campaign is going to get exponentially longer, because you've got such a large budget to spend. And so you're kind of balancing the cost benefit of spending too much during that pre-campaign versus spending too little. And so if you don't spend enough, then you're not going to have a LaunchBoom, and your initial day 1, day 2 is going to be really sad. So and it's going to make the rest of your campaign much harder. So I would say, like, if you're getting good returns and again, the reservation funnel makes it a lot simpler. If you're getting great returns on your reservations, then spend more spend a lot, like closer to that 40K during your pre-campaign. If you're not, if your reservations are like okay, or they're not great, but they're good, that's where I would say like launch sooner than later and spend 15 to 20K. If they're bad, then you want to launch, like, decrease the span of that like you're not working with LaunchBoom or something like that, and you're not getting great returns on your ad spend, then you're going to have to probably launch sooner, or come work with us, or come up with other strategies to improve your cost per reservation. Next, let's do a fun one here. Kevin, who's your favorite Pokemon? It's from Andrew.
That's an easy one. Lugia, the mystical Pokemon. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm definitely more old school. I'm a Squirtle fan myself.
Nice.
Well, you can't beat that episode where they're all wearing like sunglasses and they're just too cool for school.
I do remember that.
My childhood. Next question. This question is not related to advertising. The campaign owner. So the campaign owner is not from any country supported by Kickstarter. Any way to launch a campaign? Yes. If you talk with, I know Indiegogo has a program through Stripe, I believe it is, called Stripe Global, that can help you set up kind of like an entity or an account in another country. And so I know you can do that on Indiegogo. And of course, find a team member or family member or something like that in a country supported by Kickstarter and partner with them to move your business entity there to launch the campaign. Next question. Is it a good idea to run Kickstarter first to leverage their organic traffic and work with Gelup, and then come to Indiegogo in demand and leverage their audience and work with you guys? This is like the time old question, and honestly, like it really, I mean, Kevin, you can give your answer, I'll give mine kind of first, which is they're both awesome. They both have their benefits. We've done a ton of really great webinars with Kickstarter. We've done a ton of great webinars with Indiegogo. You can go check those out. Babak, I think you were on all of them, which is amazing. I would say look at your product and which platform does it fit better with. So for example, if you're like consumer electronics, then definitely Indiegogo for sure. If you're more design focused, then Kickstarter. But again, both is true. I've seen design projects work really well on Indiegogo and really hardcore tech work well on Kickstarter. So we used to promote kind of like say that strategy back in the day, but we've come to love both platforms for who they are. We've probably launched way more products on Indiegogo, so that's kind of like a note there, just from a data perspective. But again, this week we launched a product on Kickstarter. A week before we launched a product on Indiegogo. I would recommend talking to both platforms, seeing which one's able to give you the most support, and is able to, again, identify what works best for you. If you're working with LaunchBoom, we'll do the best we can to connect you with both platforms to help you make that decision and look at your data and all of that stuff to hopefully guide that decision.
And then, Tom, just back to that question. I think he asked leveraging Gelup's audience for in demand specifically. Is that something that a creator can do?
I would not recommend that. Again, he was saying using Gelup for Kickstarter and using the audience on there. When it comes to, so like really what you're asking is like working with multiple advertisers on a Indiegogo in-demand campaign or Indiegogo campaign. So you can do it. There are some agencies that I absolutely recommend trying that with. And then there's agencies I absolutely do not recommend doing that with. For example, Indiegogo runs their own ads, and we've worked side by side with them on a lot of projects. They're running ads, we're running ads. We traditionally run more spend than they do, but they do get great performance. And so like AIT, great example. They were doing great. I definitely think we outperformed them on that project, but we had another project where it was like neck and neck, and I think they did a little better than we did, but we spent more. So they're great. We've worked with them on a number of different projects. But when it comes to other agencies and things like that, it comes down to like who's got access to the pixel, and like where are the ads coming from, and there's a couple different things to think about. And so if you're working with LaunchBoom, we can help you identify, if you do want to work with multiple agencies at once, you can. It does make things a lot messier. And you're not able to see like the true performance. And sometimes working with too many, don't do it. You'll really hurt yourself. Like more than two is absolutely going to cause you more problems than just working with one. Next question. Can I skip the pre-campaign and just work with you guys when I go live? You absolutely can. Totally cool. That's what AdBoom's for. If you're on Indiegogo, if you're not, you go to Kickstarter. We'll be there for you when you move to in-demand. The one thing though is we are selective when it comes to the projects we work on for AdBoom. We do turn down a lot of business there. Most of the projects that we do take on for AdBoom have raised over 100K. If they're not, the one projects that we will do is if you're in Academy. So if you're in Academy, then we'll definitely help you out. But if you're not, you might risk just getting turned down if we don't have the bandwidth, or if we don't think we're going to do a good job on your product. And so if you want to ensure that, I would highly recommend taking advantage of LaunchBoom Academy and getting on there. Andrew can speak to Academy. He's one of our Academy students, and he's been really active on this webinar and on a couple other ones. It's awesome. It's really inexpensive. You get a ton of value. And if you want to learn more about that, just hop on a call with Kevin and he can tell you all about LaunchBoom Academy.
Yeah, and you can just send me an email and I can tell you about LaunchBoom Academy and maybe even give you a discount code.
Yeah, awesome. And then I got a question: is it possible to get LaunchBoom support for pre-launch only, not in live? If so, total cost involved pre-launch segments wise with LaunchBoom. So for example, for a Kickstarter campaign, so we just launched a Kickstarter campaign this week. We did their entire pre-launch. They hit, 6 figures in the first 24 hours, which is great. We turn over advertising to Gelup, maybe do some remarketing on our own. So because the one thing of for example, Gelup, they don't like it when other advertisers are advertising. So they're cool with us as long as we're advertising to our pre-launch list and things like that. And so you'd go live, we'd work with you, we'd actually shepherd your relationship with Gelup and help make sure that everything's working well while the campaign is live and providing a lot more than just advertising, because we are a full service agency. We support everything from conversion rate to cross promotions to the whole 9 yards. And so we'll help kind of shepherd in Gelup, make sure that they're doing a good job and support you in that. And then once you move over to in demand, say goodbye to Gelup and back in with AdBoom, or LaunchBoom. So we work with other agencies from time to time and can help shepherd you through that experience, as long as they're an agency that we like and approve, because they're good people. Ito's the man. Next question. Say we pay for TestBoom out of pocket and passes. With that data, can we get financing to fund the rest of the process, i.e. AdBoom, e-commerce boom, all the other stuff? Yes, you definitely can. You absolutely can. We'll be able to connect you with one of the funds that literally does that. So I know Will on our team can speak to that more. Kevin, I'm not sure if I believe you've got those relationships as well. So, but yeah, definitely talk more about that. Next question. Did you guys work on the Kickstarter project of the USB cable with magnets? They crushed it. No, we did not work on that campaign. But they did crush it. They were super cool. Yeah, we didn't. Again, I can't tell you how many people launch on Kickstarter and are like, "Dang, I wish we knew about you guys beforehand," because we would have taken them even further, which is crazy. Is there any specific reason to pick specific projects? What's your scope on selecting the projects? Yeah, so when it comes to we are selective even with TestBoom. So with TestBoom, AdBoom, ScaleBoom. ScaleBoom is the most selective, then AdBoom, then TestBoom. Because TestBoom, of course, we're suspending kind of our judgment. I can't tell you how many times, we've seen a product, we've been like, I'm not sure about this. And then it raised $1 million in the first 30 days. True story. Zero breeze. Hashtag zero. So that was a crazy pre-campaign. It was a 3-week pre-campaign. It was a mess, but it was amazing. We raised over $100,000 in the first 24 hours and did well over $1 million. So with only $15,000 of spend, but that's definitely not normal. So don't quote me on that. But we want to make sure that we're working on projects that are doing well, and we want to make sure that we're able to devote a ton of time to our clients. It's really important that we provide a great customer experience more than just results. We create great results, but even more so, we want to be able to create a great customer experience. And so as our team's growing and expanding, we definitely don't want to bite off more than we can chew. And so when it comes to what are we looking for in these projects for TestBooms, we're kind of comparing it to other products that we've seen success in. And so if you don't get accepted into the TestBoom program, it's because you're probably an app or you're way too niche or something like that. And in which case it won't work well. With AdBoom, we're looking for previous success. So traditionally, we're coming in at products that have raised more than 75K, maybe 100K. And then we can really help them. Our goal there is to really help them get to 7 figures.
Yeah, and what we really look for too, aside from the product, is whether we're going to be able to become long-term partners. So we could graduate you from not just TestBoom to LaunchBoom, but also to AdBoom, and then to potentially ScaleBoom on the e-commerce side. And that's really important to us because it's hard to grow the business sustainably when we just work with one project, no matter how large it is, right? We spend 6 to 8 months on a project, and then we don't get to work with them again. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really important to us that we can become long-term marketing partners and advertising partners. And that's also why our agency, LaunchBoom, thinks more long-term than anyone else.
Yeah. Next question. If my product is a $12 item, can I say, I'll kind of translate this. Can I kiss a $1 million campaign goodbye? And so not necessarily. So one of the lowest priced products we ever launched was Backblade. I think it was $35. So package 2 or 3 of them and you're at that mark. And they raised well over $1 million, and that was a really successful campaign. And so it's totally doable. It's a lot harder because you don't necessarily have as much margin for advertising. So trying to come up with interesting ways to increase your average order value, like bundling and things like that, are a really great way to increase that AOV. But it is is it possible? Anything is possible. Yes. I can't say that it's not. Is it really hard? Yes. And it also comes down to can you take a loss, and can you what is your margin? So for example, a 3x return on a $12 item is $4. That's insane, right? Our average AOV, our average cost to acquire, I'd say on Facebook, just in general, is probably, a good campaign is probably about $30. So if you're looking at a $4 cost per action, that's going to be really hard. But if you're okay, cool, I can sustain a much more challenging margin. Again, we've got a really cheap product. It's $20-ish, and our cost per reservation was $6. And so they're cool, their margins are great, all of that stuff. And so they passed TestBoom, and we're going to be launching that campaign soon. And so we're really excited about that. And so totally doable, totally possible. It's just a lot more challenging because at the $12, you're looking at balancing both the cost for advertising, but you're hoping that your conversion rate's a lot higher because people aren't spending as much. It's whatever, yeah, I'll buy it. And there has been tons of I can think of measuring. There's a measuring product that I backed on Kickstarter that raised a lot of money. I think it was $1 million campaign. We see them all the time. So it's totally, totally doable, a little bit more challenging. Awesome, guys. Well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thank you so much thank you, Kevin, for being on here.
And, it's my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and it does look like there was one more question that came in, which is very important to answer, which is, will there be a recording? Absolutely. Congratulations. By registering, you now have access to the recording. Literally come back here in 30 minutes and it will be here. Same link, same everything, same us. And so for those of you who are watching the recording right now, thank you for watching the recording. And thank you for being here. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. And again, Kevin, thank you so much. You've shared a ton of really great information today, and grateful for you, and really grateful to have you on this webinar today.
Yeah, same here, Tom. Thanks for having me. And everyone who's watching, feel free to reach out. It's just kevin@launchboom.com.
Awesome. Well, take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you all next week.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.